The full arch implant and all-on-4 market is more competitive than ever and getting worse. Let's face it, you're probably great at full arch implants. You do fantastic, life-changing dentistry. Guess what? So does Dr. Smith down the street and Dr. Jones across town, and probably 10 other dentists within a 20-minute drive. And that's if you're lucky. And you're all fighting for the same small pool of full arch patients. There just aren't enough people who want, need, and can afford full arch patients to support all of these doctors. And the 80-20 rule applies brutally here. If you've got 10 full arch doctors in town, I would bet that the top 2 do 80% of the full arch cases. And that leaves the bottom 8 to fight over the scraps. All they can do is compete on pricing and wondering why their expensive marketing companies aren't working. So why should one of these full arch patients choose you instead of the 9 other docs in town that also do full arch implants? And if you don't have a clear and compelling answer for that question yourself, then there's no way that your patients are going to have an answer to that question either. You're no different than the 9 other docs in town. And if everybody is the same, then that patient will just choose whoever is the cheapest. And that's why in this presentation, we're going to talk about differentiation. This is your USP, or your unique selling proposition. What makes you different than the 9 other docs in town, and why should a patient choose you? Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Ling, and on this channel, we talk exclusively about how to do more full arch implants in all-on-4 cases. Today, we're going to talk about unique selling propositions, or how to differentiate and position yourself as the expert for your ideal patient. This is how you differentiate your full arch practice from the dozens of other full arch docs in your town who are all fighting over the same patients. Now, most full arch docs are awful at differentiation. Think about how pizza stores do it. Do all pizza stores position themselves the same way? Of course not, because they either differentiate or die. So Domino's unique selling proposition is 30 minutes or free. Little Caesars is hot and ready. Probably got a couple of high-end pizza joints in your town. They use flour imported from Italy, hand-crushed San Marzano tomato sauce, and house-cured pepperoni. It's their unique selling proposition. And all the pizza stores in the middle who have no differentiator get crushed because all they can do is compete on price. It's average boring pizza for average boring prices. There's too many of them and they cannot all succeed. So how do most dentists, and especially full arch dentists, attempt to differentiate themselves from their competition? You see it all the time. Go to your competitor's website and I guarantee you this is what you're going to see. Full arch dentists love bragging about their experience, their education, their technology, their in-house lab. They treat you like family. The problem is that none of these are truly differentiators because everybody says the same thing. And not just that, but none of these supposed differentiators answer the most important question in the patient's mind. And that question is, so what? What's in it for me? What's in it for me, the patient? Why should I care? How does this make my life better? What unique pain point do you solve that nobody else can solve? What outcome can you promise that nobody else can promise? Because I can promise you that nobody cares that you have an in-house lab. What they do care about is getting their final teeth faster. And if you're one of those dentists who's trying to differentiate based on your experience and your lab and your technology and your training, well, you just sound like everybody else. And when everybody sounds the same, offering vague, fuzzy promises that don't really mean anything, they inevitably end up competing on the only thing left, price. Welcome to the race to the bottom. And these days you see it all over. The most common unique selling proposition in full arch dentistry is cheap arches. Ads for $15,000 arches, even sub $10,000 arches. Headlines that say dental implant specials, limited time only. We beat any quote. It's getting crazy out there. And you know who loves the cheap arch game? It's the marketing companies, because it's easy for them to generate clicks and leads for cheap arches. You willing to do cheap arches is great for the marketing company, but not necessarily great for you. And I don't have to tell you this, but the cheap arch game is not for everybody. You're talking about lower profit margins, dealing with difficult patients with unrealistic expectations, being forced to cut corners in your time or your materials to save cost, needing to play the bait and switch game by advertising a rock bottom fee and then later on adding extras like extractions and grafting and sedation and extra implants. And then there's the constant pressure of wondering how long it's going to be until somebody swoops in and offers to do arches in your community for just a little bit less than you. Can you build a business be the cheapest? Yes, this is how the dollar stores and Walmart do it, but it requires massive volume, ruthless efficiency, and a number of compromises that you might not be willing to make. So what do you do instead if you don't want to compete with the Walmarts of the full arch world? It starts with defining your unique selling proposition. What makes you special and what makes you different than everybody else in town? It answers the question, why should a patient choose you? And defining your unique selling proposition is a function of finding that intersection between what you do really well in your office combined with what patients actually want and what all of your competitors miss. And this intersection right here is your sweet spot and your key to differentiating yourself as truly unique and offering something compelling and different than everybody else in town. So how do you get there and identify your unique selling proposition? You can do it in 3 steps. The first step is a ruthless market analysis. You need to understand who are the big dogs in your town. What are they claiming as their USP? And most importantly, what do their patients complain about? What are they missing? What are they not doing well? Where are the opportunities? Step 2 is a brutal self-assessment. What is your practice really good at? What kinds of cases, what kinds of patients really energize you? What do your patients love? And most importantly, what do you want to be known for? What do you want your reputation to be in town? And lastly, you have to identify what your full arch patients truly care about, because your unique selling proposition isn't about you. It's not about impressing other dentists. It's about your patients. How are you going to make their future brighter with less pain and an easier path? This is what patients truly care about. And if you can identify what your competitors miss, what you do best, what patients actually care about, then there's some intersection in the middle that checks all 3 of those boxes, and that's your unique selling proposition. Now, I've gone ahead and done the hard work for you because I've created 9 pre-made avatars that you can choose from. All you have to do is choose the one that's closest to your unique selling proposition and then mix, match, modify until it hits that tiny target. So let's go through these 9 avatars one at a time. The first is the one we've already talked about, the Walmart dentist. If I was going to use this model, I would target patients who had already had consults with other dentists and let that dentist do the heavy lifting of making the patient aware of their problem, making them aware of a solution, treatment planning the case. And then I would go after the patients who had gone through the entire process and just couldn't afford it. And then I would just swoop in, undercut the other doc, and steal their cases. So if you want to go this route, then embrace it. But of course, there's all kinds of downsides to this model that make this not that attractive to most full arch dentists. The second avatar is the man, and we all know this doc. It's the doc that seems to have more patients than they can handle, and they don't do any marketing. They rely strictly on their reputation and word of mouth. This is the best avatar to have. But of course, it's the one that's nearly impossible to achieve, because the best way to become the man in town is to start 10 years ago when there was nobody in town doing this and you were first. That's how you come to dominate a market. It's an amazing position to be in, but unfortunately not attainable, at least not in the short term for the rest of us. Avatar number 3 is the innovator. This is the doc who does it faster, easier, better than everybody else. And this happens to be the avatar that I've chosen for my practice. Because in my area, what I noticed is almost all the full arch docs are not doing a true all-on-4 protocol. They're doing an old style with lots of bone grafting, sinus grafting, multiple specialists involved, delayed loading. Nobody's doing palate approach and pterygoids. So my unique selling proposition is no grafting, no specialist, and no waiting. I promise my patients that we're not going to do any bone grafting. We're going to have one provider doing the entire procedure from start to finish, and there's no waiting. You're going to leave that day with teeth 100% of the time. And those three promises are our USP because it sets us apart from everybody else. So when I did my USP analysis, what I noticed was that my competitors were often doing a delayed load with multiple doctors and lots of grafting. People around me love to widen ridges and do sinus grafts. And then when I looked at what we do best in our office is we do the full digital workflow with in-house lab. So that gives us the capability to deliver outcomes that these docs just can't. And then when I talked to patients, what I heard them complain about when they came from these other offices is they didn't want to do grafting, both because it was scary and expensive and time consuming. They didn't want to see a specialist. One of the biggest complaints is that they didn't even know who was going to do these procedures. They saw one doctor consult. They weren't sure who was going to do the surgery. They weren't sure who was going to do the grafting. They weren't sure who was going to do the teeth. It was too confusing and overwhelming for these people. And lastly, they didn't want to wear dentures. These people who are paying tens of thousands of dollars per case are doing it because they want to avoid dentures. So forcing these people to wear a denture during healing doesn't make any sense. And that's how we came up with our USP, the intersection of these three things. It's no grafting, no specialist, and no loose dentures. And this has been a very powerful differentiator for our practice. Now, it works for my practice in my area, but might not work for you. So let's look at some other avatars. The fourth one is the boutique. This is for the patient who values service and relationship and experience. Think of it as the opposite of the high volume, low touch DSO model. You can position yourself as the local small business versus the big bad corporation. An emphasis on service and personal attention, and these patients have very low price sensitivity. I would promote things like a luxury experience or exclusive concierge healthcare. And if that doesn't work for you, then maybe you're the fixer. This is the dentist who tackles difficult cases that no other dentist will touch. They do a lot of revisions. They fixed failed cases. This USP leverages the idea that every patient thinks that they're special and they're the most difficult case ever. So of course they want to see the doctor who fixes everybody else's cases when they go wrong. My headlines would be, "We fix failed implants," or "The fixer for complex cases," or "When every other dentist says no," or "Where dentists turn when their case is too hard." The sixth avatar is a variation on the fixer, and this is the dentist's dentist. This is the dentist who's so good at what they do that even other dentists refer their friends and loved ones. This is perfect for dentists who teach other dentists because their ideal patient values expertise and authority. And my headlines would be, "Where other dentists send their family," or "Training the next generation of implant experts," really leaning into that authority angle. That, you know what, I'm actually a big deal in the dental world. There are some patients who are drawn to that. Number 7 is the gentle touch. And this is the dentist who targets patients who have fear of the dentist because of bad experiences in the past. We know there are tons of patients out there like this, especially full arch patients. The ideal patient for this avatar is high fear with previous trauma and previous really bad dental experiences. And I would promise them no judgment and no lectures. Gentle dentistry while you sleep will wake you when you're done. Those are the main avatars. Here are a couple of weird ones. You could be the holistic dentist, the one who advertises all natural, biocompatible, metal-free. Or you could be the artist who goes after the very, very high end of the cosmetic market. The patients who want to be red carpet ready. The ultimate smile makeover. Craftsman design and artisan hand-finished smiles. This will appeal to a certain segment of the population And it's up to you to decide if there's opportunity in your market to be this kind of avatar. So what happens next? You don't have to be just one. You might be the innovator with the gentle touch, but what you have to do is choose an avatar and commit. If this is who you are, who you help, and how you're different, you have to say that message as loud as you can, as often as you can, in as many places as you can. And that's how you differentiate yourself and win. So what do you do once you have this avatar? You should be screaming this message all over the place, whether it's in your ads, your website, your social media, even your team and your office all have to be aligned and congruent. Because if you say you're the boutique, you'd better look, sound, smell, and feel like the boutique. If you say you're an innovator, keep hammering the old way and the downsides of the way other dentists do it and the benefits of your new way. If you're a fixer, I would constantly showcase stories of patients who've come to you and wish they had come to you first. And if you're the dentist, I would flood your social media, your ads, your website with photos of you and other dentists who've traveled from all over the country, all over the world to learn from you. If you're an artist, your website and your office are probably covered with high quality close-up photos and videos of your master lab techs at work and the final results. And if you're the gentle touch, you've probably got a lot of stories about patients who were terrified of the dentist until they found you. The key is to differentiate or disappear. No more bragging about your experience, your training, or your technology. Instead, analyze what you do best, research your competition to see what they're missing, and then understand what patients really want. Once you choose one of these avatars or hybrid of these avatars, make that the message the core of everything you do in your office. This is how you differentiate. This is how you avoid having to compete on price. This is how you separate your practice apart from every other full arch practice in town and become irresistible to your ideal patient.